Okay, so we are Baruch Hashem live, and we can get to work because last week we Baruch Hashem spent a lot of time talking about Yehoshua and his role as the continuation of Moshe Rabbeinu. There's one or two pieces that we should just clarify by the end of Perek Aleph before we go into Perek Beis, which is the most peculiar transition that you could ever possibly imagine. Because the Tanakh tells us that at the end of the Perek, says this is just important to understand, after telling Yehoshua, Hashem tells Yehoshua, the obligation of Talmud Torah, that you can't do this if you are not constantly connected to that vision of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu has told you need to be reviewing and drawing from that wellspring forever. And then Rachav, which we're going to come back to a number of times over and over again. Then Pasuk Yud tells us, Yehoshua as Shotrei ha'am leimar. Yehoshua tells the officers of the people, saying, Iru bekerb ha'machaneh v'tzavu es ha'am leimar, ha'echinu lachem et seida, ki ba'od shloshos yamim atem ovrim es ha'yarden hazeh, la'avoy l'reshes ha'aretz, asher Hashem lekechem na'isen lachem l'rishta. Get ready, prepare. 3 days' time, we are going into Eretz Canaan. And then he explains to the Ruveni, the Gadi, and the Chatzi Shevet HaMenashe, who were going to be settling the land of Sichon and Og outside of Eretz Yisrael proper. They were going to be inheriting those lands that were conquered in the battles that Moshe had at the end of Sefer Bamidbar. He reminds them, remember that you made a promise to Moshe Rabbeinu that you were going to help us fight. You are allowed to leave your wives, children, flock, cattle, everything that you need, leave it on the other side of the Yarden, but you are coming in with us to fight. Good. Ad asher yaniach Hashem la'achechem kochem v'yashu gam hema es ha'aretz asher Hashem Elokechem noisein lahem v'shavtem la'eretz Yerushaschem v'irashtem Isa asher nasan lachem Moshe eved Hashem. You're going to come in, you are going to conquer the land with us, and then once everybody has their inheritance, you have your inheritance too. No problem. And then Ve'anu es Yehoshua leimar. The people then said to Yehoshua, Kol asher tzivisanu na'aseh. Everything that you tell us to do, we will do. Ve'el kol asher tishlachenu nelech. And anywhere that you send us, we will go. Kachol asher shamanu el Moshe kein nishma elecha. Everything in the same way that we listened to Moshe, we will listen to you, which somewhat dubious. They weren't always excellent at listening to Moshe. Nevertheless, the sentiment is the rest of the pasuk. Rak yeh Hashem Elokecha imach kasher haya Moshe. So long as Hashem is with you, just like He was with Moshe, meaning Yehoshua. So long as you are still representative of Moshe, we're with you. Right? Meaning, this entire enterprise is on the backs of, we are adherents of the Torah of Moshe. And then, Yehoshua doesn't initiate this. This is fascinating. The very last pasuk of Perek Aleph is an initiation of the people pledging allegiance to Yehoshua. The allegiance is, Kol ish asher yamre es picha. Anybody that rebels against you, v'lo yishma es dvarecha, and doesn't adhere to the things that you are telling him to do, l'kol asher tetzavenu, everything that you command us, you must. They will be put to death. Rak chazak ve'ematz. You should be strong. Meaning what the people are saying to Yehoshua, and we're going to come back to this a number of times. What the people are saying to Yehoshua is, we voted for you. You're our guy. And you'll remember from the first year that already from the Milchama against Amalek, Klal Yisrael have this deep love for Yehoshua. That Yehoshua is the one that is going to bring them into Eretz Yisrael. That Yehoshua is the one that's going to fight the battles for them. That Yehoshua is their future leader. He is the leader that is taking them into the land of milk and honey. The land that is the land of their promise and future and physical prowess. Now, we saw that was somewhat subverted and messed up significantly in the story of the Meraglim. There was this deep desire to hang on to Moshe, and we'll explore that in the Mashech Chochmah a little bit later. But nevertheless, the people pledge allegiance to Yehoshua. This is going to become essential and important because of what's going to happen when somebody doesn't listen to Yehoshua after the conquest of Yericho. You might remember from once upon a time in middle school that there was a fellow by the name of Achan that is going to take from the spoils of the city of Yericho and will be put to death for it. He is going to not listen to what Yehoshua has to say. We're going to talk about him and his punishment a little bit later. Yeah.
Why this ends up being spoken by Bnei Dan and Reuven though? Why is it the whole Klal Yisrael saying this to Yehoshua?
Oh, no, so it seems to be that
this is Vayanu.
Yeah, so it seems to be that Vayanu is everybody then responding. Meaning he addresses the people and then specifically Reuven, Gad, Chatzi, Shevet, Menashe, and then the people respond. That's how it seems to be. Meaning it's love dafka that Reuven, Gad, and Menashe, those are the people that are responding this. But everybody is in agreement. Yehoshua, whatever you tell us, that's what you're going to do. Excellent. One would expect then that the next parak would begin with a traversal of the Jordan River and a beginning of the conquest. That's what one would expect. Indeed, the last thing that anybody would expect is what's about to happen next, which is, if you open up to the very first pasuk, Bazah, Vayishlach Yehoshua bin Nun min hashitim shnaim anashim meraglim, cherish. Yehoshua sends from the Shittim, from that area, shnaim anashim meraglim cherish. Two, it seems to be, although the Mefarshim are debating what exactly the word cherish means. Shnaim anashim meraglim cherish. Two people that are silent or secret spies, to say, he says to them, Lechu, go, ru'u es ha'aretz, see the land, ve'es Yericho, and the city of Yericho, ve'yelchu, and they went, ve'yavo beis isha Zoina, they came to the house of an isha Zoina, which we're going to need to define, ushma Rachav, and her name is Rachav, ve'yishkevu shama, and they sleep there. Many bizarre things to talk about. Bizarre thing number one to talk about is, why is Yehoshua sending Meraglim? No? What's the problem with sending Meraglim?
Lack of faith.
No,
So,
well, why does it have to be? Maybe he's doing, this is his mission. He's going in to take the land.
it's going in to take the land. But what's the problem with sending these Meraglim? What happened the last time they sent Meraglim?
See, there's Meraglim Cherish. There's secret Meraglim.
Secret Meraglim.
Bnei Yisrael don't even know about them. It's just Yehoshua.
So that's a machlokas. Do Bnei Yisrael know about them? Meaning everybody knows about them, just their mission is secret. Meaning vis-a-vis they are going clandestine voyage to the land of Israel. Or that not even Bnei Yisrael knows about them, only Yehoshua knows about them. That the Mefarshim deal with that. But the broader question of why is Yehoshua sending Meraglim at all is a fascinatingly strange question. Meaning, the whole mitzvah of it is bizarre. Why is it so bizarre? Because the last time Moshe Rabbeinu sent Meraglim, it went very, very badly. The Meraglim came back last time and they said what? Right? We don't want to go there. This is a terrible idea. We should stay in the desert.
And what was the real upside on either one?
On
either effort, I mean, what was the upside? They were already commanded of what they were to do, and it was going to be miraculous.
right.
What were they going to benefit from on either one? As far as the first one, you could say this is how you normally perform war and invasions, and you have to sort of go along with you can't rely on a miracle. But we knew it was a miracle to begin with, and in this one for sure. What's the upside?
So the question to ask is, why does one send spies?
make military strategic decisions.
For
Make
military and
someone
strategic
on
decisions.
You're not supposed to be someone on these.
Right. So the Radak points out that there were 5 major differences just in the pshat between Yehoshua's spies and Moshe Rabbeinu's spies. For example, Moshe Rabbeinu's spies are the worst kinds of spies in the world. They went in a large group. That's not good spying, right? Meaning, if you were going to spy, right, you want to send, I don't know, the FBI is sending, the CIA is sending spies to some espionage mission. The worst people to send are members of Congress. Yes, certainly not like a million of them. That is not something that is smart in terms of spying. It's very clear that mission that Moshe Rabbeinu was sending on was not spying. In fact, it's only afterwards that they're called Meraglim. Moshe Rabbeinu sent them latur es eretz Canaan, to literally to tour the land of Israel. He sent them to visit the land of Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu's spies are not there as part of a military strategic mission. It's there as a PR mission back to the Jewish people. The Ramban points out that it is only once the people requested, this is the Ramban in Parshat Shlach, it's only once the people requested spies be sent that Moshe Rabbeinu acquiesced to send them. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you think it's a good idea, then send them. But it would have been much better had they not requested spies. Problem is that as soon as you do request spies, for Moshe Rabbeinu to say no makes the whole thing like suspect, right? Hey, Moshe, this land that you're promising us, can we go and check it out beforehand? No. You can't go check it out beforehand. Trust me. The moment that happens, people get like suspicious about stuff, right? Like, not to sound crass, but imagine like a young man that today this wouldn't exist, because today everybody knows pictures of everybody in shidduchim. But it's Parshas Chayei, so we should talk about shidduchim, right? So imagine that somebody says to a young man, "I've got the perfect girl for you. She's smart and she's funny and she's, amazingly, dashingly good looking. She comes from a wonderful family. You should go on a date with her." So the correct thing for him to do, if he trusts this guy, is to say, "Sure, I'll go on a date with her." Lu Yitzuri says, "I need to see a picture of her." So the only option that you have left is to show a picture. Because if you say no, then he's going to say no, right? Because if you're denying the ability to see it, then you're trying to cover something up. But the reality is that it would be much better, very often, almost in all cases, to meet with her and make a decision, right? If you trust the guy that, that she's not horrendously ugly, so then by meeting her and getting to know her, you will definitely gain more than by seeing a stupid picture, right? That's I was having this conversation with another Rav and a Mechanech, who was saying to me that this whole business that today everybody's insistent upon pictures and what kind of pictures, and it's a disaster. Because aside from the fact that a picture is literally the worst way of judging another human being, it also shuts down the ability to get to know somebody in any way, shape, manner, or form before making an educated judgment about them. But once the Meraglim say, once the people say, we want to take a look at this land, so now you don't have a choice. And it happens to be that once that happened, everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket. K'mavur in the psukim in Parshat Shlach in the first parak of Dvarim, which leads to the question why Yehoshua is sending Meraglim at all. Yeah.
Yet still, we emphasize that the line of Yosef is beautiful.
Yes. So, there is an immense value to beauty.
So asking for a picture, you should.
But beauty in service of what? We're going to discuss. That's this parak. Beauty in service of what? Because the place that they go to is Ve'avo Beis Isha Zoina. They go to the home of a Zoina. Now, who is this Zoina? So there are two Mefarshim. Rashi says, Tirgem Yainasan Pundikisa. Mecheres mine mezainis. She's an Isha Zoina. She is somebody that provides mezainis. She's an innkeeper. She's an innkeeper. Simple pshat. That's what Rashi says. She's an Isha Zoina. That's what the lashon of Mozain is. But it's also the lashon of znus, licentiousness, prostitution. They come to the home of Rachav, the prostitute. The Gemara in Tainis tells us, and of course, in all likelihood, they were looking for an inn to stay at. They happened to arrive at an inn run by a prostitute. That's both are true. Both are true. The Gemara in Tainis tells us, what's the Daf Yud Beis, the Daf Yud Daled, that Rachav was such an illustrious prostitute that anybody that hears Rachav, Rachav immediately has a mikra of tumah. Immediately experiences sexual pleasure. Just hearing her name. And then the Gemara says, well, hold up a second. Some of the Amoraim point out, I can say Rachav, Rachav all the time, and nothing happens to me. The Gemara says, yeah, you didn't meet her. If you met her, that's how it would be. That's how it would be. Okay. The Gemara says, well, read a few more psukim, and then we'll see this Gemara in Zvachim, which is devastating. Ve'amar lemelech Yericho lemar. To the king of Yericho, it was told, saying, Hinei anashim bo, guys are coming. Heina halayla, mi b'nei Yisrael, they are here tonight, from the Jewish people. Lachpar es haaretz, to investigate the land. Vayishlach melech Yericho el Rachav lemar, and the king of Yericho goes to Rachav and says, Hoitzi ha'anashim habayim elayich, give me these two men that have come to you, asher ba'u lebeisech, that have come to your home, ki lachfar es kol ha'aretz ba'u, because they have come to scout out the land. Vatikach ha'isha es shnei ha'anashim. She takes these two men, vatitzpanai, and hides him. And Chazal point out, she only hides one of them. Who's the other guy? Anybody know this Medrash? Medrash says that we're going to talk about this. I don't know if we'll have time this evening. But these two fellows are none other than Kalev ben Yefuneh, who was promised he would enter into Eretz Yisrael, right? Yehoshua and Kalev were the only two Meraglim that were promised that they would enter into Eretz Yisrael. Kalev is one, and the other is Pinchas. Pinchas and Kalev. But Pinchas is Eliyahu, which means that he is a malach, which means that he can hide himself. That's how the Medrash Tanchuma says. He could turn invisible. But it's benai, so she only has to hide Kalev. We're going to talk about all of these Midrashim. Vataimer kein ba'u elai ha'anashim, and she says to the messengers of the king, yes, indeed, these men came. V'lo yadati me'ayin hema. I don't know where they came from. Vayi hashar lisgar b'choshech, and it came time for nightfall, and the gates of Yericho are about to close. Va'anashim yotzu, and the men, they left. V'lo yadati ana halachu. I don't know where they went to. Ritfu maher acharehem ki sasigum, run quickly after them, and then you'll be able to catch them. So she provides a alibi and a decoy. Vihi halasam hagaga, and she takes them up to the roof. Vatitmenem bepishte ha'etz, and she hides them underneath the flax. Haruchos la al hagag, that are on the roof. Right? She's got bundles of flax on the roof. She hides them underneath it. Va'anashim radfu achareihem derech hayarden al ha'ma'abros, and the men, they chase after to the encampments, Va'ashar Sagaru, and they shut the gates. After the messages of the king have already left the city. They're about to lie down. And she goes up to the roof. And she says to these people, Yadati, I know ki nasan Hashem lachem es haaretz, that Hashem has given you this land. V'chi nafla e maschem aleinu, and that your fear has befallen us. V'chi namogu kol yoshevei haaretz mipneichem, and that all of the hearts of the people have melted before you. That is a direct reference to what? Namogu kol yoshvei Canaan. Where do we say Namogu kol yoshvei Canaan? Az Yashem, Kriyas Yamsuf. Namogu, they have melted, right? Namogu kol yoshvei Canaan, they're petrified. Tipol aleim emasav avachad, they are terrified of you. Yeah? V'chi namogu kol yoshvei haaretz mibnechem, everybody's terrified. Ki shamanu es asher hoivish Hashem es mei Yamsuf mibnechem, we have heard that Hashem has dried up the Yamsuf in front of you, but tzeschem mimitzrayim, when you came out from Mitzrayim, v'asher asisem lishnei malachei ha'emari, and what you have done to Sichon and Og, sheba Eber Yarden, Sichon and Og, asher acharamtem asam, that you've destroyed them. V'nishma v'yimasad b'avenu, and we have heard in our hearts have melted, v'loi kama oid ruach ba'ish mipnechem, and the spirit of no man has been able to arise within them. Because Hashem, your God, is the God in the heavens above and on the earth below. That's from. That's very from. From Rachav HaZoina. Right? Like, Alavai, we should be that from. All of a sudden, she becomes Rebbetzin Rachav. Chazal tell us, by the way, she marries Yehoshua. She marries Yehoshua. That's important. Rachav HaZoina. There are many, many, many themes that arise from these few psukim. Many themes. I think somebody just emailed me about the shir. Hold on a moment. Okay. Now, the themes that we need to discuss here, on this pasuk, we'll begin with this. The pasuk says, "V'lo kama od ruach ba'ish." Nobody has any ruach anymore. I apologize for the graphic nature of this Gemara in Zvachim, but you should see it inside. Says the Gemara, what Rachav is saying to them is, "Da'afilu akshu yinami lo ikshu." No man can become erect. Umana yada, how did she know? The Amar, because as the Amoraim said, Ein lecha kol sar v'nagid shalei ba al Rachav HaZoina. There was not a single prince or ruler, we're talking 31 kings of the land of Israel, that didn't have an appointment with Rachav HaZoina. She was a entrepreneuring innkeeper, to say the least. So she knew that nobody had the ability to engage in intercourse. She knows that something is happening. Amru, the Gemara says, Bas Yud Shonim Hayesok Sheyotzu Yishol Mitzrayim. She was 10 years old when the Jewish people came out of Mitzrayim. V'zonsa kol arba'im shana. And her business lasted for 40 years. Sha'i Yishol B'midbar. That the Jewish people were in the Midbar. Achar nun shana. After 50 years, Niskaira, she converts to Yiddishkeit. Amra, she said, Yehei machul li bischar chevel chalain upishtin. She says, may all my sins be forgiven with the rope and the window and the flax. What's the rope, the window, and the flax? The end of the parak, she lets Kalev and Pinchas descend from the window. Yes.
What's the penalty of prostitution?
In the Torah?
Yeah.
For a non-Jew? Nothing.
Well, she's asking for forgiveness.
Right.
For the reward.
She's asking for forgiveness. Now, it's very clear that she's not exactly the definition of an Eshes Chaya. You know what I'm saying? She recognizes that she has dredged her neshama in the lowest forms of impurity. The lowest worlds of tumah is what she has engaged in. And le'umazah, zeh le'umazah, everything is in accordance. The Jewish people have ascended for the last 40 years to the highest levels of Kedusha. And now they have come to take the land of Israel. Rachav HaZoina, Chazal are explaining to us here, is the address of the entirety of Eretz Yisrael, of all of the Kochas HaTumah, all of the impurity that exists in the land of Israel is addressed to her. She is the epicenter of that. That's Rachav HaZoina. She is the place in which all of the Tumah, quite literally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and as we'll see in a moment, politically, coalesces into her. It all folds into her. Beyond that, and we're going to discuss this at great length, please God, next week, but Dafka Yehoshua wants to conquer Yericho first. Yericho. He wants to conquer the city of Yericho. No other city. Yericho is, as we'll see in Perek Vav, Sogeres Misugeres. It is closed. It is the lock to the entirety of Eretz Yisrael. Once Yericho falls, Eretz Yisrael can fall. Which is why Yericho, you might remember, has a big song and dance about it. Surrounding 7 times, hakafas, blowing shofar, walls come crumbling down. There is a breaking down of Yericho that needs to happen. But before Yericho can be broken, Yehoshua sends these 2 spies, Kalev and Pinchas. Kalev and Pinchas need to meet with and convert Rachav HaZoina. That's what they do.
That's why he sent them.
Well, we're going to see. He sends them to meet with and to change the mind of Rachav HaZoina. That is the strategy. Now, it seems to be that their mission here is found out instantaneously. It is life-threatening, and that they escape only as a result of Rachav HaZoina helping them. And here's where we're going to zoom out, like to 30,000 feet for a moment, before we delve deeply into it. Because this theme of spies and prostitutes, this is not the first time we've seen this. The story of spies and prostitutes shows up a long time ago in the story of Joseph and his brothers. You might remember that Joseph is dashingly good looking. Yes? And you might remember that Joseph's brothers sold him down to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, which is referred to throughout Tanakh as Ervas Haaretz, the nakedness of the land. Now, that has 2 connotations. Connotation number 1 is that it was a place of immense promiscuity. Connotation number two is it is a beautifully easy land to grow and develop in. It is, without being crass, what people would refer to as virgin soil. Always. Because the Nile is constantly overflowing every year, and you can plow the ground and grow from it. We don't relate to this so much today in the way that we think and speak. But in the land of in the land of Tanakh, in the ancient world, the relationship between having children and growing produce was very similar in the minds and hearts of people. In order to have children, a man needs to plant his seed within a woman. And in order to grow grain, the farmer has to plant his seed within the ground. And the relationship between these two images in the minds and hearts of king and country, if you will, is that the two things that make up a place are the people and the land. And the people make the land, and the land makes the people. And the job of the people is to grow from the land and then to create more people. And these themes tie up very, very intricately within the concepts of zera, which means both children and grain, and
the upsharing. That's what you do.
right, and ervas is orla, right? Ki adam eitz hasadeh, man is a tree of the field, and ervas haaretz, that there is a planting of a seed within the nakedness of the land. Mitzrayim, within that sense, is the most fertile of lands and the most promiscuous of places, because in accordance with how fertile a place is how luxurious life can be, and how much free time people have to engage in licentiousness. Past this, in a very simple way, when people are starving and the land is not producing, it is much more difficult to find the time and the passion to engage in making children and raising children, certainly not in an enjoyable and healthy way. The Gemara tells in Maseches Brachos, the opinion of Shmuel, that a siman that Mashiach is coming, that Geula is coming, is that Eretz Yisrael will give forth its fruit. Because the Jewish people bring forth the fruit of the land of Israel. And when the land is not giving its fruit, it cannot sustain population. You cannot grow people, you cannot grow the land. It is also robbing the people therein of their ability to have children, which is the beginning of what Rachav is talking about. The people are realizing that they are losing their land. They are feeling that fear. They no longer feel that this is theirs anymore. There is a disconnect between land and people. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because the story of spies and prostitutes shows up in the story of Yosef HaTzadik, who is dashingly good looking, and his brothers sell him into slavery, into Mitzrayim ervas haaretz. And the Medrash tells us that when they first came down to look for food, when there is a famine in the land of Canaan, and they come to look for food, Yosef accuses them of what? Being Meraglim. Being Meraglim. You're coming to see as erevas haaretz, the nakedness of the land, which means multiple things. It means, one, they are coming to see all the goodness that the land has. They are coming to see, that's erevas haaretz, the fertile soil of Mitzrayim. You're on a fact-finding mission to see how you can exploit the land of Mitzrayim. Connotation number two, you have come to see erevas haaretz. You have come to see the vulnerabilities of the land, the nakedness of the land. You're coming in to try to take it from us. And number three, latur es erevas haaretz, the places that they went to were houses of prostitution. Says the Medrash, why are they going to houses of prostitution? Because they're looking for their brother. Where might an incredibly good-looking Hebrew slave have ended up? Says the Ksav Kabbalah, that's our parish for the year, so I thought we'd bring him into the Tanakh Shir a little bit as well. On the pasuk, Meraglim atem, you are Meraglim, says the Ksav Kabbalah, erevas haaretz, says, V'li nira de yosei nachal nevarshay loshan churva u'shmama k'may aru aru k'may shechas Rashi says, I think that we're talking about that they're coming to destroy the land. That's erva miloshan aru, to uproot. And then he says, B'yonasan bin Uziel Tirgem erevas haaretz, quotes from the Targum Yonasan, Arias Matias Ara. Targum Isha Zoina Asusa Matia. Matai. Nira Kavanasai Lamasha Omru Bebreshis Rabba, the Shloisha Yom Rishonim, Terem Bay Ha'achim Liyosef, Hayuhalchim Beshuke Zainas. For the first 3 days, says the Medrash Rabbah, they were looking for Yosef in the markets of the prostitutes. Ulai Nimkar Yosef Likuba. Maybe Yosef was sold as a male prostitute. They would find him there and rescue him from there because they were so guilty for what they had done. So they're looking for Yosef in the houses of prostitution, and Yosef, when he finds them, says, Meraglim atem, you are spies. How do I know that you're spies? Because you're going to the houses of prostitution. What does spies have to do with the houses of prostitution? He says, Yosef said that they're Meraglim. He says, Ki babate hakadeshim shegdole ha'ir mutsuyin sham benokel yuchal lehis vad'ois mimisteri ha'ir v'hamedina. When you go to the house of prostitution, what you find are all of the greatest people of the city that are all hanging out there, clandestine, without wanting to let anybody know that anybody else is there. It's this big secret that everybody knows about, that's where you find the politicians. Babate Zonas. It's not just in Tafshin Pei Beis. It says, Meraglim de Yehoshua Nemar v'yelchu yavo beis isha Zoina u'shma Rachav. Take a look at the Gemara in Zvachim that we just quoted. They went to the house of Rachav, like the Gemara in Zvachim says, because that's where all the news would be. Says Aksav Kabbalah, this theme of Meraglim and Yosef and his brothers is a very old story. When you want to find out what is going on in the land, you go to the houses of prostitution, you find the prostitutes, you talk to them, they'll tell you what's going on. Pragmatically and practically. But also, in those incredibly lowly places, you also find out what's really going on in a place. you find out what's really going on in the country, as they did. But it's kedai to point out that Chazal tell us that Yehoshua is sending Kalev and Pinchas. Who is Kalev? Who's Kalev? Kalev ben Yefuneh. What shevet is he from? So let's take a look. We have a chumash here. Where's my chumash gone? I used to have a chumash there. Says the chumash as follows. Take a look. Parshas Balak. At Parshas Shlach. There we go. These are the things that people just gloss over, right? But as Dave said, he wants to know a little bit more about what the deals with the Shvatim.
Mhm.
Yeah? Ve'ele shmaisam. These are the names. Lematei Ruvain Shamua ben Zakur. Lematei Shimon. Shafat ben Chari. Lematei Yehuda. Kalev ben Yefuneh. Yehuda. Who is Pinchas? Pinchas ben Elazar ben Arnakai. Chazal identify Pinchas with Eliyahu. So you have the Nasi of Shevet Yehuda. Who is Yehuda? Who's Yehuda? Yehuda is the king of the Jewish people. Yehuda is Yehuda ata yeducha echecha yadcha ba'arif havecha v'yishtachavu lecha b'nei avicha, like Yaakov promises. Yehuda, your brothers will bow to you. You are the king. Yehuda is David Malka Mashiach. Yehuda is Beis Hamikdash. Yehuda is Malchus. And who is Pinchas? Eliyahu Hanavi. So Yehoshua is sending the first two people that he sends to cross the Yarden River to meet with Rachav Zoina is Eliyahu and Mashiach ben David. He is sending those two personalities, which means that Mashiach ben Yosef is sending across the Yarden River. I'm quoting from the Ramami Pano in the Shara Gilgulim, Sefer Gilgulim, which is quoted from the Arizal. He is sending across the Yarden River, Mashiach ben Yosef is sending Eliyahu Hanavi and Mashiach ben David to cross the Yarden River to meet with Rachav Zoina. That is the first foray into Eretz Yisrael. And they're going as Meraglim, because the notion of going to seek out Erevas Haaretz, that is what they were accused of once upon a time. And that is what Yehoshua is sending them to do now. Yosef, who's saying, Meraglim atem, you are spies. You have the capacity to go and see what is going on in the land. To go and find Yosef, to go and find Mashiach ben Yosef. Yehoshua is saying, you were looking for me there. Go look for my place in Eretz Yisrael now. Go and find me. Go cross the Yarden and go and see where I am now. Because, my dear friends, the very first time that Yosef becomes Yosef HaTzadik is when he engages and defeats whom? Eishes Potiphar. Who wanted to do what to him? to seduce him. She wants to say, Shichvaimi, lie with me. Engage in pleasure with me. Be with me, she says. And Yosef denies that. And he suffers as a result of it. And he becomes Yosef HaTzadik as a result of that. And the Torah tells us in Parshas Achrimos, be very careful when you go into Eretz Canaan. Don't do like Maaseh Eretz Mitzrayim and don't do like Maaseh Eretz Canaan. And then the Torah lists off all of the arayos, all of the averas of sexual impropriety and promiscuity. Which means that before conquering Eretz Yisrael, the very first thing that needs to be contended with, the avoda of Yosef HaTzadik, the avoda of Mashiach ben Yosef, the avoda of Yehoshua ben Nun, is to make sure that we are not falling prey to licentiousness and to znus. That is something that we will be able to defeat. That we will defeat Rachav Hazon. That we are not going to be walking into Eretz Yisrael and failing at that task. Because failing at that task would mean losing the entire project. And in order to understand this, it would require a tremendous amount of backstory, and we're going to say a small amount. We're going to say a very, very small amount. Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin, in Dover Tzedek, and this is just the beginning of understanding Yericho, and there's 1,000 places that we could get this from. When he speaks about Yehoshua banning all of the property of Yericho, which we'll see later on in the Sefer, why is it that you cannot touch the spoils of Yericho? He writes, Ki yesoidam misherish klipas noiga k'nizkor le'el. That Yericho comes from klipas noga. Now, in order to understand this, we're going to share a piece outside from the Balatanya, in beginning of Likutei Amarim. The Balatanya describes that there are areas of the world that are a mitzvah to engage in. For example, eating matzah on Pesach. Eating matzah on Pesach is mitzvah midaraisa. If you eat matzah on Pesach, you have fulfilled the mitzvah. If you eat chametz on Pesach, that's an aver midaraisa. What if you eat chicken on Pesach? Is that a mitzvah? Is that an aver? No? Okay, so you can die, yeah. Simchas erect, fine. Neutral, seems to be, right? Seems to be neutral. That's what's called, in the language of the Zohar, in the language of the Mekubalim and the Balatanya, a klipas noga. Klipas noga. The mashal is, imagine a fruit. There are certain parts of the fruit that are delicious and edible. Right? Delicious and edible. You have that. And then you have the shell of the fruit, which is inedible and is bad for you. If you eat the fruit, excellent. If you eat the shell, it's bad for you. But usually, between the fruit and the shell, there is something that connects between the two. It's not necessarily good, it's not necessarily bad. It depends on the fruits, it depends on the person. That's called the klipas noga. Could be good, it could be bad, depends. Like eating pistachios, right? So shell of the pistachio is gross. Pistachios, delicious. That like green fuzzy thing, it's a nah, right? Like nobody says, that was a delicious green fuzzy thing. It's like, meh. That's klipas noga. That is what we would normatively define as rishus. There are things in the world that are not good for you, not bad for you, they just are. Says the Baal HaTanya, that is called Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra. Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra. Tov, everybody knows what Tov is. Tov is fruit. Everybody knows that Ra is shells, clippers. That's, by the way, why Tumah and Averos are called klippa. It means a shell. But then there's the things in between. Most of our lives, my dear friends, is taken up by the things in between. It's not quite good, it's not quite bad. What do you do with it? So that depends. That depends. It depends on the context, and it depends on the intention. And the Chavis Halavavis writes that in truth there is nothing in the world that is rishus. Nothing. Because either what you are doing is becoming a better person or a worse person, sometimes imperceivably in one direction or the other. Very difficult to tell. Imperceivably, or sometimes very perceivably. You can become better or worse through engaging in this thing. Sometimes you'll do better and sometimes you'll do worse. Sometimes eating chicken on Pesach is a mitzvah d'oraisa. And sometimes it is the worst avera in the world. And sometimes, those of us that have struggled with this parsha know that 5 bites of chicken is a chiyuv mid'oraisa, and 6 bites of chicken is an avera mid'oraisa. That extra bite that was totally taiva, I didn't need to eat it. I was just totally giving in to my base desires. And in these areas, these incredibly subtle areas, are where the world of Kedusha and the world of Tumah live. And the Torah, in the vast majority of instances, does not give clear definitions of where those lines are. As the Ramban points out, Kedoshim Tiyu is a mitzvah that is incredibly expansive. Kadesh es atzmacha b'mutar lecha. Make yourself transcendent in the areas of your life that are permissible. A person could say, I want to follow the Shulchan Aruch, and I want to eat and drink and be merry all day and engage in sexual pleasure all day, only in ways that are mutter. That's what's called a novel b'rishus haTorah. A disgusting person with the permission of the Torah. You have lived up to the letter of the law, bidiyuk. The spirit of the law, you have abandoned entirely. You have abandoned the Moshe Kibbel Torah Misinei Masar Yehoshua. You might be holding on to the Pirtei Pratim of the halachas. You've kept all the halachas. Excellent. Check, check, check. Was the food glad kosher? Check. Is this woman your wife? Check. Did she go to the mikveh? Check. Did you go to minyan today? Check. Are you fressing like a pig? Yeah, check. Is that the way that you're living your life? Is that called Kedusha and Tahara? Is that the vision and the mission of the Jewish people? Absolutely not. That's Rachav HaZoina. It's the world of znus, it's the world of licentiousness, it's the world of caving to physical pleasure. And to conquer Eretz Yisrael means to create a society, to plant in the land, to grow from the land in a way that will be successful and enjoyable and will not lead the Jewish people to Koichi v'atzim yodi, asali asachayel azeh, that you won't forget the Ribbon Shalom. V'zacharta es Hashem Elokecha, you're going to remember Hashem, that you're not going to turn into a moralless and baseless society. That you will be able to enjoy and engage with all of the beauty and all of the pleasure. That's the purpose of beauty. You're supposed to enjoy it. You're supposed to be able to engage with it and enjoy it and love it and amaze it. And to not become a moralless and baseless society. To engage in the world of klipas noga and make it kadosh. To bring that into the world of Kedushas Yisrael. And so the first foray into achieving that is to go to the home of Zoina, of the world of what Eretz Yisrael produces. The beauty of the land of Israel, which is also the same thing as that which has led the people in Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Canaan at this point in time, totally astray to the world of promiscuity and licentiousness and sin. And to say, no, we can be here and we can be in this place and not succumb to these temptations. Rachav Hazona is the embodying of what Eretz Yisrael is. Eretz Chemda Toiva Urechava. That's Rachav. The vastness of Eretz Yisrael. The beauty of Eretz Yisrael. The Eretz Yisrael that gives forth its fruit willingly. That provides you with everything that you need. That has been abused, that has been taken advantage of by the people in Eretz Canaan. All of that is contained within Rachav Hazona, which is why Yehoshua marries her. Because Yehoshua is that person that represents the capacity of Klal Yisrael to rescue the world of beauty and of pleasure from the world of Tumah and bring it into the world of Kedusha. To be able to enjoy this world. Absolutely, to enjoy it, to have the best time here. And yet not to become a novel B'Rishus HaTorah. To take the entirety of Torah's Moshe and bring that with you into the land of Eretz Yisrael and to say, I can eat and I can drink and I can enjoy the pleasures of this world, and it will not turn me into an Oved Avodah Zarah, and it will not turn me into a novel B'Rishus HaTorah. That's the goal here. So the very first thing that needs to be contended with is this institution called Rachav. We'll take it one step deeper. Is the picture that we are painting here of what Eretz Yisrael is supposed to be is exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu had intended for Adam and Chava. A land, a place, a garden, where everything is taken care of for you, everything is provided for you, where you get to enjoy from the fruits of the garden. And within that, you develop a world, Le'ovda u'leshemra, to create a world, Le'ovda u'leshemra, which the Ramah Mipano points out, Le'ovda u'leshemra is not talking about the garden. It's not to work the garden and to guard the garden. Le'ovda u'leshemra is the neshama. to work on yourself and to grow yourself as a result of being in the best place in the world. Go there and be in the greatest place in the world and serve Hashem. Build the world in the image that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to be. Living in a world that is beautiful, that is gorgeous, that's filled with all the pleasures in the world. Just don't get spoiled rotten. Hold yourself back from that. And that's the tchun of Yosef HaTzadik, is to be able to say, Ad kan but no more. I can say no to physical pleasure. We don't have time for it now, but why does Rachav Zoina become Jewish now? Why does she convert to Yiddishkeit? Pshat in the Psukim. Doesn't say.
Well, she believed in Hashem. She said.
How did she believe in Hashem? She's been a prostitute for 40 years.
Because all these people came in and told her how great Hashem was, basically. And even people that didn't believe in Hashem were like, oh my God, you can't believe what Hashem's doing out there.
Right, but
it's like, wow.
I'm saying, but like, she didn't convert before. She's been prostituting for all 40 years until now.
Well, the Jews didn't come yet. Then the Jews came. She's like, oh, now the Jews are here.
So, okay, so meaning I can do Averos until the Jews come.
Well, she was waiting for Yehoshua and Mashiach.
Ben Yosef, right? Pashtus is very simple. For the very first time, she met two men that didn't want to sleep with her. Two guys showed up, and she's like, two new customers. Like, we're not interested. She's like, what? What?
And one made himself disappear.
Right. We'll get there. Right? But that's only afterwards. All of a sudden, she's like, oh my gosh, this thing that I've heard is real. It's real. It is possible for a person to stare at the most gorgeous pleasure in the world and say, no, thank you. I'm good. I don't need this. I can say no to that. I can hold myself back. If that's true, yeah. Some of the Parashim also explain that that's what gave them away instantaneously. Right? Because you see that in the Psukim. Like, they arrive, they go to bed. Oh, well, there's two guys that are not from Eretz Canaan. How do you know? Well, because it's the very first time in all of Rachav's career that two men showed up and they're not interested in sleeping with her. They're looking for a bed for the night. Wow, this is real. It is possible to say no. It's possible to be in a place of immense pleasure and immense temptation and to hold back from that and to say, no, we don't need that. We don't need to engage with that. We can be happy with what we have. We can be happy and healthy being Yidden that engage with pleasure in a measured, healthy, restrained way. And then our society will continue and flourish and not collapse. Yeah.
Granted, it's Eliyahu Navi and Mashiach ben David, but we're also talking about a woman who is 50, and she's been doing this since she was 10. So given the fact that prostitution begins at 10 years old, and she's 50, I can imagine it's not that hard to say no.
Arguably, although that's not how Chazal understand. Right? Chazal understand that. One could explain that this is a mashal, or that 10 and 40, there's what to talk about in the numbers. You could also say beyond that she wasn't the only woman working there. It's also possible. There's a lot of things that we could build around this. But Pashtus is that they showed up in her house and weren't interested in her. And this was astounding to her. This is when it becomes real. Because for 40 years, people have been telling her about this amazing group of people that are living me'al u'me'ever la teva. They're living beyond the whims of the natural world. And she's heard that they have defeated Sichon and Og. So she knows that they are very strong and that they are very powerful. And then she wants to know, yeah, but is it real? Because the Yetzer Hara can bring down anybody. the most powerful men in the world. But when two men show up that are not interested in her, she knows that this is real. It's very hard for somebody that is embroiled and engaged in the world of Avera to believe that there are good men left in the world. And that an entire nation is like that. A nation of morals and ethics and values. That their army fights moral, ethical wars, and that what they are coming to do is eradicate immorality. She's like, yeah, I'm part of this crowd now. This is real. It's real. So this character of Rachav, and we're going to come back to her, this character of Rachav is the symbol of Eretz Yisrael. She is the capacity of beauty and pleasure and enjoyment and success and Gan Eden. Just don't get lost there. So Yehoshua sends these two men, Meraglim, to bring down to defeat first and foremost Rachav. Rachav is the key to all of Eretz Yisrael. Because this is what Moshe Rabbeinu told us. If you can go to Eretz Yisrael and you can still maintain a fealty to morality, to Torah, to Moshe Kibbutz Mesina Masar Yehoshua, then the land is yours. And if not, forget it. You gain nothing. You gain nothing by coming to Eretz Yisrael and turning into Mitzrayim. Don't do that. I think our time is up for tonight, and I apologize for the late start and the later start. But Bez Hashem, we'll continue with Perek Beis and come back to some pieces in Perek Aleph, and continue with a little bit of Perek Gimel next week. We're going to say a bunch of pieces together. So take a look at those three prakim again inside, and there should be, please God, the beginning of the next large sugya that we're going to be contending with, which is Eretz Yisrael and what Yehoshua is doing conquering Yericho. And we'll see you then.